I'm live in the building, in the flesh. Hit that like button as you come in. If you're there, hit the comments. Let me know who you are. Let me know you're in the building. Popping open a cold one and talking some boxing before I head over to my brother's house for some UFC action, McGregor versus Poirier, or Poirier versus McGregor, depending on who you talk to. So it should be a good night of UFC action too, although I'm not into that sort of thing. But it is what it is. No boxing on tonight. We got UFC. So I'll be over at my brother's for that later on. Hit that like button as you come in. A lot of people are going to be catching this on the archive. And by the way, man, the podcast has been doing great. Over 600 views on the latest podcast. We had about 200 live, 400 archive, and about 50 on the iTunes as well. Audio. Salute to A-Rod in the building. So the Power Punchers podcast is going well. Only 4 shows in. We're doing good views on that as well. Channel doing good views, up to 3,300 subscribers. So keep subscribing, man. Hit that like button as you come in to support the channel. And if you're catching this in the archive, man, leave comments below. I just wanted to do this real quick, impromptu, no notes, none of that stuff. Just 20 to 30 minutes on my thoughts on the fights last night. Because I was going to drop 4 different videos. I dropped the Jojo Diaz one last night, but instead of doing that, I want to consolidate it all into one video here. Had a lot of thoughts on Diaz versus Fortuna last night. I'm going to elaborate on that a little more. Ramirez versus Barrera, Zurdo Ramirez. He seems to put a lot of people to sleep. A lot of people were talking about he was boring, been boring in his career, but last night he finished the job, did what he was supposed to do against Sullivan Barrera. I'm going to talk about that. Estrada versus Tsunami, the female fight last night. Estrada, I haven't been watching female boxing very long. I'm only a couple months into female boxing, and so far she's the most skilled fighter I've seen up to this point in female boxing, Estrada. So shout out to her. We can talk about her a little bit. And Zepeda, that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Zepeda because I was watching that. I was watching this guy for the first time last night, and OMG, that dude is exciting. OMG, Zepeda is exciting. So Zepeda versus Tanahara, we're going to talk about that as well. And it was a fun night of boxing. It was just a fun night of boxing, which people focus so much on the negative right now. You got Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. And all of the negativity between those two guys the past year and a half. So much focus on that over the past couple of days. It was good to have good, exciting fights, a good night of boxing. And so many people in the boxing world focus on the shiny objects. Oh, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, COVID-19, vaccines, etc., etc., etc. And they're so focused on that they lose sight of all the good fights that we've had recently, all the good fights that we have, good matchups that we have coming up, and the great fights that we had last night. That was a great card that DAZN and Golden Boy put together last night in a good environment. It made sense where they put the fight in LA. They did everything right last night. Everything right. And shout out to Jojo Diaz. What I want to know in the comment section is, who was your fighter of the night last night? For me, it was Jojo Diaz, although Zepeda, I was very impressed with Zepeda last night. Very impressed. Very impressed. Shout out to Boxing Dialogue in the chat as well. Impressive win by JoJo coming in. That's exactly what I was saying. Replacement fight. He did what a lot. You should reward fighters who take chances, right? And it was as my flag drops in the back, you should reward fighters who take chances, right? And Jojo Diaz took chances. He took a chance by taking this fight because Fortuna is a guy who's been ducked in the division. He's a tough fighter. Not an easy style. He's a guy who can give you many different looks, and he showed that last night when he was using lateral movement, fighting off his back foot, using movement, trying to work off the jab, and use his 4.5 to 5 inch reach advantage to his advantage. And then when that was not working for him as much, he started to walk Jojo Diaz down, and that worked for him for about a round and a half until Jojo Diaz started to catch him with big shots, and then you started to see Fortuna get on his bike again. But Fortuna is a guy who is he can be a complex fighter, right? You can say what you want about him not winning a big fights in his career, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a dude who's been ducked at 135. And 135, man, is becoming more of a Shark Tank. With Jojo Diaz entering, and bringing that energy into the division. And then everybody got to see Zepeda last night, who was going to be a beast at 135. A beast at 135. Shout out to Andre Rodriguez in the building. In the building. Hit that like button as y'all come in. But I'm kind of bouncing around here, man. But Zepeda, that dude reminds me so much of Virgil Ortiz, his style, how he just walks straight through you. He's just going to walk you down, walk you down, walk you down, apply pressure, walk through your shots, eat them like M&Ms, and then he's going to catch you with even bigger shots. That's Zepeda's game. People can call it not technical or whatever they want to call it. There's a difference between technical fighters and skilled fighters. All right? All you have to do is find out what you're great at and become skilled at it. Marcos Maidana did it. You can say Marcos Maidana is not a technical fighter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He was a skilled fighter. He learned what works for him. Pressure fighter, threw punches at odd angles, and it worked for him. Tough SOB, and the same thing with Zepeda. Zepeda's a guy who was going to walk you down, great chin, walk you down, walk you down, walk you down, and he's an exciting fighter. This is what we need in boxing. We need guys like Zepeda. All right? This guy is going to be fun to watch. I am looking forward to this guy's career. I think he's in his early 20s. And somebody was talking about that earlier. You look at the guys in 135, besides Lomachenko, Teofimo's young, early 20s. Devin Haney's young, early 20s. Jojo Diaz is in his mid-20s. Tank Davis, mid-20s, if he fights at 135. Zepeda, early 20s. These are guys who are very young, and being very young, it's going to be tough for them to avoid each other for very long, right? Because if they move from 135, they'll be moving north to 140 to the same division. So these guys at some point are going to have to start mixing it up with each other. And Jojo Diaz, this is why I love this guy, because he took the Fortuna fight on short notice, said, hey, Ryan Garcia is going to step out of the fight, mental health problems or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to step in on short notice. I'm going to fight this guy that people have been ducking, and that's going to leverage me into a bigger fight. And what does he do? He wins the fight. All right. He makes weight. He shows his professionalism. This is 135. He's found his weight. He answered that question. He can fight at 135 as well. 122, 126, 130. He couldn't make 130 anymore, but his power, his technique, his skills translate to 135 too. He answered that question resoundingly last night. He is a 135 pounder. He belongs somewhere in that top 10 in a deep division, and he's bringing a new energy to the division. We've had an energy in the division besides Lomachenko and Teofimo fighting each other where guys are just, business, politics. I'm going to stay behind my promoter, my manager. I'm not going to call out this guy, or I'm going to call him out on Twitter, but it's going to be a different story when we actually have to fight, and they've been avoiding each other. Jojo Diaz brings a new energy to the division. He brings an energy like, I want Ryan Garcia right now. It's an in-house fight. Make that fight. I'm Devin Haney's mandatory. Make that fight. He called out both guys last night, and he told the world, these are the two guys I want to fight, and I want to fight them. And I believe him. I believe him because he has that track record, and he showed that in this fight. On short notice, he took on a guy that people just do not want to fight, and that's Javier Fortuna. So shout out to Jojo Diaz. I thought he did a great job of dealing with adversity in this fight. Fortuna had good moments early in the fight, and then Fortuna made that adjustment, the proper adjustment to make in this fight where he started to walk Jojo Diaz down, sit on his punches, and it was working for him until Jojo Diaz started to sit on his punches and say, you know what, let's trade. And he did that. And then we saw Fortuna say, you know what, I'm going to backpedal a little bit. You win. I backpedal a little bit. And Jojo Diaz doing that, drawing a line on the sand and saying, no, man, this is my fight. This is my night. He won the fight. It's interesting. You have fights where both guys land about the same amount of punches, right? But the difference is with Jojo Diaz, he's fighting off of his front foot. He's sitting on his punches. He's trying to make the fight, walk him down. He's the effective aggressor. For most of the fight, Fortuna, although to his credit, great boxing ability, he did a good job of boxing in the fight, was landing punches, but he was fighting mostly off of his back foot using lateral movement, so his punches didn't have the same effect that Jojo Diaz's did. And that's what the judges saw standing right there by ringside, because the judges, they hear the punches landing. They see it close. All right. So it has a different effect on the judges. So even though if you look at CompuBox, if there was CompuBox, or you look at the official stats, it's going to show that probably percentage wise and punch wise, they were landing about the same equal amount. But Jojo Diaz was trying to make the fight more. He was the effective aggressor. He was showing ring generalship. And he made the proper adjustments throughout the fight. And Fortuna made the proper adjustment as well in trying to walk Jojo Diaz down. It just didn't work because Jojo Diaz, like I said, put his line in the sand and said, you know what, man, this is my night. You're not going to walk me down. You're not going to walk me down. And if you do, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it. And that's what Fortuna did. He paid for it as he started to walk Jojo Diaz down and move forward in the fight. Boxing Dialogue says, I hope JoJo versus Devin gets made next, but Ryan is a good fight too. And I threw out the poll in the community page on my channel. Who would you rather see JoJo against next? Would you rather see him Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia? And it was pretty much 50-50. It was like 51-49 for Ryan Garcia. I'm good with either one. The thing about Ryan Garcia versus Jojo Diaz is it would be a huge fight in LA. Huge fight. That fight would sell out Staples. That would be a huge fight and would do great numbers on the zone. That's a great fight. And I got to be honest, man. After watching what I watched last night, I think I would favor Jojo Diaz slightly against Ryan Garcia, although the Vegas odds would disagree with me. The Vegas odds would have Ryan Garcia as the favorite, probably 60-40 favorite against Jojo Diaz, maybe even more, maybe 70-30. But I like Jojo Diaz, man. This guy has a lot of grit. He's a tough fighter with skill. Southpaw fighter. Just did it. And one thing I'll say too about the fight last night, I think the judge, although rabbit punches can be serious and should be penalized more, I thought he did it too quick. And I thought he did it at a bad time when Jojo Diaz just suffered a cut from a headbutt and Fortuna was leaning in with his head. So that was Jojo Diaz throwing a rabbit punch to say, no, man, look, I got to protect myself. A lot of times people just see the reaction to the action. I think that's what the referee saw. He saw Jojo Diaz. Fortuna came in with his head again, and Jojo Diaz started rabbit punching in the back of the head. Sometimes you have to get a little dirty to protect yourself, and I thought that's what Diaz was doing there. Rabbit punches can be serious, of course. That's where fighters get hurt, but sometimes you got to use common sense as a referee, and I thought that was a quick point that was taken off of it. It was a hard warning, but I thought he could have been a little looser with that. And in a fight like this, that point could have loomed large in this fight. Let's say it's 6-6, then all of a sudden, man, we got Fortuna winning the fight by a point on that 1 point. But luckily, Jojo Diaz, in his case, he came on strong. Rounds 9 and rounds 10 were great rounds. And it's because of what I was talking about earlier. It was Fortuna saying, you know what? The lateral movement's not working as much right now. Me fighting on my back foot is not working as much right now, so I'm going to start to walk Diaz down. So he started to do that and sit on his punches. So there was more trading on the inside. But Jojo Diaz, he started to sit on his punches more as well and lighting up Fortuna. And what you saw there was Jojo Diaz winning the fight. Jojo Diaz won the fight right there. When he started to sit on his punches on the inside, and you started to see Fortuna back up and fight off of his back foot again, he showed that, you know what? You got it, man. You got it. That's basically what that was. And Jojo Diaz just did a great job of winning the fight right there. He won the championship rounds and ended up winning the fight, man. Tough fighter, Jojo Diaz. Tough fighter. I love the fact that he's moving into 135 in that deep division. He's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem in that division, man. I'm telling you. Last night was really his coming out party for a lot of people, as was Zepeda. I'll get into him in a minute. Let's get to these comments. I want to see JoJo fight for the title. I'm ready for it too. And JoJo Diaz is ready. He's ready. Zepeda, once again, I'll talk about that in a minute. He's a couple fights away. He's still a little raw, but exciting fighter. I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen with Zepeda over the next couple of years. I favor Diaz too, not 60-40. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I slightly favor JoJo Diaz against Ryan Garcia because I've seen more from him. And his head seems right now. JoJo Diaz's head hasn't been right consistently in the past. He's had issues with weight, and that was the issue with his last fight. Is it wasn't so much the problems outside the ring. He just couldn't make weight. He couldn't make 130, man. He looked dry, and he looked not there in that fight. So this, what we saw last night is JoJo Diaz. This is what we saw. Was good. D-Style in the building. Shout out HCP. G Funky was on live last night calling the fight. I muted the zone and was watching G Funky call a fight. G Funky did a good job. The zone needs to hire G Funky. That guy was in the zone last night calling the fight. So shout out G Funky Boxing. Subscribe to him. But yeah, man, that's my thoughts on Diaz Fortuna. JoJo Diaz is ready. He did a great job of overcoming adversity last night. He did a great job of doing what fighters are not doing in the sport right now, is taking a tough fight on short notice, not using politics and all this stuff, hiding behind that stuff to duck top fighters. He took on a guy who has been avoided in the division in Javier Fortuna. He overcame adversity in the fight. He made the proper adjustments. And he won, we can say convincingly, maybe not, 115, 112 on my scorecard. I thought the fight was close. I think Fortuna did some good things, but Diaz won the fight. He won the fight, and he was entertaining at the same time. And he overcame also the cut in the third round off of an accidental headbutt. So he overcame a lot of adversity in winning the fight. So shout out to JoJo Diaz. Salute. He was my fighter of the night. So if y'all have another fighter of the night that y'all want to put in the comment section, because there were, you got 4 choices from last night. But Diaz was the one for me, just that he made a power move in taking that fight on short notice and then won the fight. And he won it in entertaining fashion. He won it overcoming adversity. So great job for JoJo Diaz. Ramirez versus Barrera. I saw a lot of people calling Zurdo Ramirez because he puts people to sleep. Zurdo Ramirez, here's my thoughts on Zurdo. As far as the fight last night, he did what he was supposed to do, right? Sullivan Barrera is a guy that you put in front of a guy that you want to win, right? They wanted they wanted Zurdo Ramirez to win the fight, so they put Sullivan Barrera in front of him, a guy who is on almost a 2.5-year layoff, a guy who has lost 2 out of his last 3. He's a guy that was put there in front of you to look good against. So he did what he was supposed to do. Body shots, Zurdo did what he was supposed to do. The body shots, man. Did a great job with the body shots. And let's see. Andre agrees with me. Diaz is fighter of the night. Shout out to D-Style Boxing, man. Appreciate it. That scar tissue not going anywhere on JoJo. I agree. The scar tissue never goes anywhere, man. I can tell you that. I got scar tissue all over myself. So the scar, you can take vitamins for it, but it still doesn't go anywhere. I've tried everything to get rid of the scar tissue. It doesn't go anywhere. So the scar tissue doesn't go anywhere. JoJo Diaz will be dealing with that his whole career, much like guys like Gotti, Malignaggi. You got a lot of guys who have dealt with scar tissue in their career, and JoJo Diaz is going to be one of those. He's going to deal with cuts. Last night was accidental, but they did a great job with that cut. So whoever the corner man is, whoever the cut man is in the corner, they get the MVP too, because they did a great job of keeping JoJo Diaz in that fight. Ramirez Barrera, though. Zurdo, for me, great performance, did what he was supposed to do, but it's Sullivan Barrera. So you want to see him step up. He's calling out Bivol. That's what we want to see. Bivol, Bitterbeef, or Kovalev, one of the guys in the top 5. If Canelo steps up to 175 eventually, that'd be a fight that can be made big time in Texas or LA as well, or in Mexico. Canelo versus Zurdo. The thing with Zurdo, man, is the ceiling is low in my opinion. Anytime you see a guy 42-0, doesn't have a big win in his career, they've been doing a good job of protecting him up to this point. There are clear deficiencies in his game, in my opinion. Um, and the handlers are handling him a certain way for a reason. There's something that we haven't seen up to this point that is part of Zurdo's game. And I don't think that I don't say that in a positive way. I say that in a negative way. I think they're protecting something that we're not seeing up to this point because the competition hasn't been there. That we're going to see against a Bivol. And once you get a guy to a certain point, 42-0, you have to eventually step him up there with something. And you saw the plan with Zurdo last night. The plan is 51-0. They showed that in the big screen before the fight, 51-0. And Oscar kept mentioning 51-0. So their plan is to get to 51-0, and I guess to beat Mayweather's record of 51-0. I don't think they're going to get there. And if it's Bivol next, like they're saying it is, that's going to be 42-1 in my opinion. I think Bivol works him. I do. I see Zurdo he just looks like an ordinary, above average, good fighter to me, but he doesn't look great. Anytime you see a guy 42-0 and he hasn't stepped up yet, they're hiding something. I say the same thing with Tank Davis, 25-0, 8 years into his career, hasn't fought a guy in any division that he's fought in the top 5. They're hiding something. He's an exciting fighter. He's got a lot of good things going for him, Tank Davis, but they're hiding something. Same thing with Zurdo Ramirez. They're hiding something, and he's not all that exciting. But so that's the good thing about him stepping up and fighting guys like Bivol, Bitter Beef at 175 is these are guys who are exciting. They're going to make him fight. And that's the thing with Zurdo that I've seen up to this point is he's been allowed to fight on his terms up to this point. Let me make sure I'm getting to comments. And y'all hit the like button as y'all come in. Y'all please hit the like button as you come in and support all these channels in HCP. Barrera is a very experienced fighter. He had to fight that way. Yeah, he's an experienced fighter. He's just very average. Salute to Coco the Dime Boxing Channel. The blood falls on the side of his face, not in the eye, so he's okay. That's right. He was rolling on the side of it. Wasn't getting his eye. Bivol's a wild fighter like a savage. His last fight wasn't impressive, but everything was under control. Bivol is the kind of fighter that exposes all the flaws. That is exactly right. Pressure fighters, look, pressure fighters, whether they have power or not, we can talk about Bivol's lack of power, whether he has power. Better Beef, another guy who will come after you. Bivol's a master boxer, that's right. So the guys at the top of 175, I think they're going to give Zurdo a lot of problems. A lot of problems. As I was just saying, Zurdo is a guy up to this point has been able to fight on his terms. His terms. And that's due to the, let's say, pedestrian competition he's faced up to this point. But once he faces a guy who makes him fight at a pace that he's not comfortable with, a guy who's going to lure him into a brawl or make him trade, make him throw punches at an output that he's not used to, make him fight off of his back foot as opposed to his front foot. That's where Zurdo's going to run into problems. And I think guys like Bivol, Bitter Beef, even Kovalev at a older age. Although I think Zurdo matches up better with Kovalev than the other guys because Kovalev is a guy who's soft in the body. And what did we learn about Zurdo last night? That we pretty much already knew is he's a body puncher. He can go to the body. He's a very good body puncher for a tall guy. So shout out to Zurdo on that front. And Zurdo's a skilled guy, man. He's technical. The thing is, though, when you're not able to fight comfortably, I see Zurdo as one of those guys who may fold under the pressure of the guys at the top of 175. That's just me, though. Y'all can leave your comments in the comment section. Do y'all think that Zurdo would beat Bivol? I do not. I do not. Moves forward all the time. The combos are wild. Not many fighters can succeed against such a fighter. Maybe Bitter Beef and Canelo, but that's it. And that's how I feel as well. Is 175. I think Bitter Beef would have to beat Bivol. Bivol would beat Bitter Beef. I don't see anybody at 175 dealing with those two guys other than Canelo moving up to the weight or fighting at a catch weight and beating those guys. Which, by the way, I'd be all for Canelo fighting either one of those guys. That'd be great. But other than that, those are the three guys. in and around 175. It would have to be Canelo beating one of those guys, in my opinion, other than Bivol beating Bitterbeef and Bitterbeef beating Bivol. Because those are clearly the top two guys in the division, in my opinion. And Zurdo's somewhere around what, 5? He was somewhere around 6, 7 coming into the division. This is his third fight in the division, so relatively fresh, so it was hard to rank him. Still a lot of question marks because he hasn't fought top competition. He still hasn't fought a top 10 guy in the division, but you'd have to rank him somewhere just off a skill level, somewhere around number 5, 6, somewhere around there. So I want to see him in there with these top guys. So good for him calling out Bivol, though. Good for him, because if their plan is 51-0, they could continue to fight pedestrian guys every 3-4 months. But their plan obviously is to step them up now. And I hope that's the plan, because they need to step them up. It's time. It's time. It's been too long. It's been too long. I like Bivol as well, man. I like Bivol. Shout out to HLD in the building, showing love. Y'all hit that like button as y'all come in, man. I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on last night before I walk over to my brother's house in a little while and watch some UFC. Not a UFC guy, but I was invited. There's food there. There's drinks there. And I watched some guys roll around half naked, rolling around on each other. Every once in a while, throw some punches. I think Connor's washed up. Trash talk is dry. Not a Connor guy. But hope my guy, Poirier, I'm from South Louisiana. Poirier's from South Louisiana. So you got a lot of people out down here watching this fight tonight. So I'll support Dustin Poirier in South Louisiana guy any day. But let's talk about Zepeda. I've been chomping at the bit. Zepeda. This guy is now at the top of my list as a guy I'm going to be promoting the hell out of on this channel. Zepeda, William Zepeda. I'm going to be dropping videos about this guy like crazy. This is the type of guy I promote on this channel. Like a Virgil Ortiz type of guy, a guy who is going to be the aggressor, make the fight, a guy like what we saw with Jojo Diaz last night. A reason I'm become a fan of Jojo Diaz. Take a fight on a short notice, fight a guy in the division who's ducked, and go and beat him. And then call out the top guys in the division. That's what we want to see in the sport. That's what we need to see in the sport. Everybody's focusing on the shiny objects and talking about the business side of boxing. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. And I'm dropping a video on that this weekend, because those two guys will be muted on this channel going forward. Until this fight happens, maybe the night before the fight, I'll drop a preview of that fight. But Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, we will not be talking about those two guys. I'm done with it. I'm exhausted. I'm done with all the this fight may happen. This fight may not happen. This fight, arbitration. Oh, this guy cheated. This guy didn't cheat. Race wars. I'm tired of it. Done. No more Tyson Fury. No more Deontay Wilder talk. Not talking about him. Done. They will be muted after this weekend. No more talk. Done with the heavyweight division, man. I'm sick of it. And especially when you have guys in the lower weight class doing what we saw last night. These guys in the lower weight classes are putting on shows. Somebody's calling me during my live. I can't have that. These guys are putting on shows, man. We're getting good fights. But everybody's focusing on the shiny objects. All right? Stop focusing on the shiny objects and focus on the substance. Focus on what Jojo Diaz did last night. Making a power move that not too many people in boxing are making right now. Right? Taking on tough opponents who are ducked in the division on short notice, and then going through adversity in the fight and coming through, still winning the fight when you're cut on accidental headbutt, making proper adjustments, winning the fight, and then calling out the top fighters in the division. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on guys like William Zepeda, who bring the fights to guys. That guy walked Tanahara down last night. Walked him down, man. The combination punches this guy was putting together. He was walking straight through the shots, eating them like M&Ms, and then landing even bigger shots, sitting on his punches, and just throwing caution to the wind and saying, you know what, this is my ring. This is my ring. That's what we saw William Zepeda last night. Taking Robert Garcia's fighter and then throwing him in the dumpster is what you saw last night. And shout out to Tanahara, man. Good fighter. And that's what makes Zepeda did last night, impressive, is he didn't do it against pedestrian opposition, man. Tanahara is a good fighter, and he walked him down and just did what he wanted with him. Love that. Love that. And I love this dude's style, man. Zepeda just comes forward, fights off the front foot, puts his chin out there, but there's skill to it, right? People act like it's rock'em sock'em robots. It's not, man. People act like just because a guy gets hit, he's not skilled. Like I said, man, there's a difference between technical fighters who work off the jab and use lateral movement. They act like if you're not those guys, you're not skilled. Skill is learning a way to fight, learning what you are effective at, and then perfecting that. And that's what Zepeda did. It's what guys like Margarito did, Maidana did. They learn a certain style that works for them, and they perfect it. And these pressure fighters, man, are great for the sport. Virgil Ortiz, I keep throwing out his name, pressure fighter who is fun to watch, throws a ton of power punches, walks forward, fights off his front foot, engages. And here's the key thing. They don't clinch much. You didn't see a single clinch in the Zepeda fight last night. Not a single clinch. And that's what boxing is supposed to be, right? Like, I mean, you can even go back to I was watching a Jack Dempsey fight with, I think it was Tooney, Dempsey versus Tooney the other day. And there was a lot of clinching in that fight. Jack Dempsey was doing a lot of clinching. So it's something that's been going on. People act like it's something new. It's been something that's been going on for a long time in boxing. But I love the fighters who keep their hands free. I was watching Juan Manuel Marquez versus Juan Diaz yesterday. And that was a hell of a fight. And what made it a hell of a fight is you didn't see any clinches in that fight. Juan Manuel Marquez was keeping his hands free the whole time. Juan Diaz was catching him with big shots early in the fight, but guess what? As the fight went on and on and on, there was a method to Marquez's madness. He just started to pick Diaz apart and stopped him in the 9th round. And that's what we see with guys like Zepeda is there's skill to what they're doing. There's skill to taking a couple softer shots. I'm going to take them coming in, but guess what? I'm still fighting off my front foot, so my punches are going to have more leverage. Yours are going to have less because you're fighting off your back foot because I'm using my leverage to push you back. And there's skill to that. And that's right. Munguia is another guy. Munguia is another guy who's going to add entertainment to the 160-pound division, the middleweight division that so desperately needs it because he's that type of guy. He's just going to come forward. And there's skill to it. He's going to come forward. It's not like these are just cavemen, rock'em sock'em robots. There's skill to what they're doing. They're walking guys down, throwing shots. And Zepeda's fun, man. Amen to that. Coco the Don in the building. Conor more active than Fury and Wilder. Imagine that. Conor is, man. Conor is. And Conor's a head case, too. And I think he loses again tonight. Could be wrong. Hopefully the South Louisiana guy, Poirier, wins. But I'm not a UFC guy, so I don't really care either way. I just want to see guys active. I want to see guys fighting top competition. And that's why I went on my little rant about Fury and Wilder. And like I said, after this weekend, I'm not going to be mentioning those names anymore because I'm just so frustrated with those guys have done with the heavyweight division. Being at the top of that division and acting the way they've been acting. And Tyson Fury, a guy, I don't think he's defended a title in his career. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's defended a title yet. I'm just tired of the off and on and the race war and all this stuff, man. It's just, why can't we just crack open a beer, have fun, talk about boxing, watch guys beat each other up. The business stuff, the race stuff, it bores the hell out of me, man. It's for people who there's something not right in life, right? So they're trying to fill a void. They're trying to bring other people down, man. I just want to crack open a beer, watch guys fight, have fun with my friends. And that's boxing to me, man. I love this sport. I love watching guys do what JoJo Diaz did last night, fight top competition, and win fights. And shout out to Fortuna too. Fortuna fought a hell of a fight, man. Fortuna fought a hell of a fight, and he fought JoJo Diaz. And Fortuna, I'm sure, will be calling out other top guys. So shout out to Javier Fortuna too, even in a loss. I still support guys. I said the same thing about Jose Ramirez after the Josh Taylor fight. I'll still support Jose Ramirez. Loss, win, you fighting top competition. If you're fighting top competition, laying it on the line, you have my support. You have my support, and I've been consistent in that. You take long layoffs. You use boxing politics and promotional issues as excuses. You don't have my support. I don't care what color, creed, doesn't matter. Don't care. Black, white, capitalist, communist, don't care. You don't fight, you don't get my support. You fight, you go out there, lay it on the line, you have my support. That's just where I'm at as a boxing fan, man. I'm for this sport as a whole. I'm not showing allegiance to a certain fighter, even if he's not living up to his expectations. I'm not doing it because it brings down the sport. And right now, from what I've seen from my perch, Deontay Wilder, a guy who I supported a long time in the heavyweight division, and Tyson Fury are not living up to their expectations. They have an obligation to be in a sexy division in the heavyweight division to sort of carry a torch and then pass it on to the next guy. And they're just not doing that. They're just not doing it. It's been frustrating to watch. So I'll continue to focus on guys like Jojo Diaz beating Javier Fortuna, even respecting Javier Fortuna in a loss because he fought a hell of a fight last night. Zurdo Ramirez beating Sullivan Barrera, and Zurdo Ramirez hopefully wanting a fight with Bivol. If he really wants to fight with Bivol and they sign it, respect to Zurdo Ramirez. William Zepeda, a guy who comes forward, fights in an aggressive style, fights in a fun style. Love it. Support it. Zepeda, that was his coming out party last night. Love what he did, going to the body, going back upstairs. Great stuff. Many power punches. And Estrada Tsunami. I'm new to the female boxing. Estrada last night, from what I saw, is my first time seeing her fight. I've seen several female fighters fight up to this point. She is the most skilled female fighter I've seen to this point, Estrada. And that was great to see last night is when you put people in a position to succeed and they take advantage of it, it's good to see. And they did that last night. They put her in LA on an undercard of popular fighters, put her in front of a lot of people. People came out to support, and they put her in a position to win, and she did it. She took advantage of it, and that's how you continue to grow that sport. All right, and that's what Estrada did last night. She took advantage of it, and she's a very skilled fighter. So Estrada beating Tsunami in a tough fight because Tsunami was tough. She was a tough fighter, throwing power punches, looked like the bigger puncher, looked like the bigger fighter, but Estrada walked straight through her and used her skill to her advantage against Tsunami and won the fight. But I just keep going back to Jojo Diaz, man. Great fight. He was the fighter of the night, in my opinion. Frazier versus Jimmy Ellis, one is a major good example of that kind of fighter, too. Frazier, one of my favorite fighters. One of my favorite fighters of all time. A guy who was going to eat punches, but he was going to get to you, unless your name was George Foreman. But Joe Frazier, one of my favorites of all time. Anybody, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter the style, man. If you go in there with top competition throughout your career, I can respect that. I can respect that. Even if you have a boring style, you go in there with top competition consistently, you have my respect. If you're a limited fighter, you go in there with top competition, you have my respect. Carl Froch. Carl Froch had a lower ceiling than many. Carl Froch was a limited fighter. Guess what? Carl Froch went on a 12-fight streak that not too many fighters in boxing, modern boxing history can stand up to. So hopefully Jojo Diaz is one of those guys, and I'm keeping my close eye on Zepeda now. And I'll be promoting the hell out of him on this channel because he's one of those fun fighters, and he looks like one of those fighters who will not duck any competition. He adds energy to 135, and 135 added two more tough fighters to that deep division last night, and Jojo Diaz and Zepeda. Two guys to look out for in that division. Let's see what we got. Why aren't there any super fights at 175? Canelo Kovalev was the last one. Up to this point, you don't really have a big name there, right? You have great fighters at the top. You could say Bivol, Bitter Beef, if you want to call them great fighters at the top, fun fighters. Not big names yet, so I don't think you can really make a super fight at 175 right now until Canelo steps up there. And Canelo's flirting with it. So if Canelo fights Bivol, Bitter Beef, Zurdo, super fight. That's a super fight. But in order to have a super fight at 175 or 168 right now, you got to have Canelo in the mix. Now, if you're talking about a top fight, like a competitive fight between top fighters in the division, then you're right. We need to have Bivol and Bitter Beef fight each other. We have to have Zurdo step up and fight one of those guys. He's talking about hopefully Bivol and Zurdo fight happens next. Oscar's saying it will. Zurdo's saying he wants it. We'll see. I believe it when I see it. Why isn't Fury? I'm not sure what the question is about Fury. If your question is why am I being tough on Fury right now, I just think this fight should have been dispatched with in 2020. The more you drag it along, the more stuff like this can happen. And I don't have any opinion on the COVID stuff, vaccines. I don't care. This isn't the channel to come to. If you want my opinion on vaccines or should he get the vaccine, I don't do not my thing. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. Because everybody has their positions and its politics and all that stuff. But I'm just talking about Fury and Wilder. The whole saga has been exhausting. It's just been so exhausting. This thing has been going on since February 2020. Deontay Wilder making all of his excuses. And I've been supportive of Tyson Fury. I've said for years now, what are we, 6, 7, and D-Style can attest to this, 6, 7, 8 years now, that Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight in the world when he's right. Best heavyweight in the world. I don't think there's a fighter alive that can beat him. If he fights Anthony Joshua, I think he beats Anthony Joshua. If this fight happens, the third fight with Fury and Wilder, he'll beat him. He'll beat him. That's just my opinion. I think he's too skilled, too big for the division. He has too many different layers like an onion. If plan A doesn't work, then you go to plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan F. I just think that all the parties involved in this, how does that have anything to do with Fury, though? That's all Deontay's issue. It is a lot of Deontay's issue, but here's what I'm saying. Deontay Wilder, apparently what the arbitrator said is Deontay Wilder had a rematch clause that Tyson Fury's team had to honor up until a certain point. So in 2020, I know we were in lockdown, shutdowns, et cetera, but this thing dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. And that's everybody involved. Everybody involved with this. And then it dragged on. And then we got to Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Why was Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury why were the talks allowed to go all the way to the bottom of the 9th inning? And then, oh, by the way, Monday morning we got arbitration. And then, oh, by the way, Monday morning the arbiter says, no fight. You have to fight Deontay Wilder. This whole thing has been a cluster from everybody involved. You can't just blame one side. I know Deontay Wilder. Dude, I've been very vocal on Deontay Wilder's issues. And I've been very frustrated with Deontay Wilder. And I think you can blame Fury, is my thing. Getting it to this point. Getting him to this point. All right? And this thing is just dragging along and dragging along and dragging along and dragging along to where we get to the point where it's the same thing with Teofimo versus Kambosos that we're seeing. Tyson Fury beats Deontay Wilder, has momentum going, and then this thing drags along and drags along. And I know, man, 2020 was a different year. I get it. But you let things drag along to where we get to the middle of 2021 and you're trying to negotiate a fight that you don't even know if you were able to negotiate it. And they get to the bottom of the 9th inning with Anthony Joshua's team. And then, oh, by the way, Monday morning, they say you can't fight him. You can't fight him. You have to fight Deontay Wilder. They've just been dragging this thing along. And I'm just frustrated with it. I'm exhausted. And of course, I don't blame Tyson Fury as much as Deontay Wilder. I just don't, man. Yes, this is exactly how I feel. And it's not, once again, man, Tyson Fury, when he's right, he's the best heavyweight in the world. Nobody beats him. There's not a fighter alive who beats Tyson Fury, in my opinion. Deontay Wilder can't do it. I think he's shown that. I didn't want to see a third fight. I still don't want to see a third fight. We already know who the better fighter is. It's water under the bridge. And no, Tyson Fury didn't have loaded gloves. Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder wasn't poisoned, etc. White supremacy didn't knock Deontay Wilder off of the pedestal. None of that. So, of course, Deontay Wilder has a lot of blame here, and I've been vocal about that. But the fact that this is dragging along is the same thing with Teofimo Lopez versus Kambosos. Teofimo had a lot of momentum going, after that Lomachenko win. And now we're to the point where this fight has been delayed twice. Had it not been delayed the first time, he would have fought before he even had COVID, if he had COVID. And then now they're talking about moving the fight to Australia in order to make this fight come out even or a little bit profitable. And Teofimo saying, I don't want to fight out there. So now the fight's in jeopardy. And now what are we going on? Almost a year since the guys fought. And now we don't know if he's even going to have a fight with Kambosos. It's just frustrating, man. The politics of the sport is frustrating. And when it gets to the point where we're a year and a half into this with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and nothing is happening. Nothing has happened except a million channels coming on here and moaning and complaining about cheating and race wars and all this nonsense. I'm out, man. I'm out. Until the night before the fight, I'll drop a preview video. I'll drop a prediction, and my prediction will be pretty easy. I think Tyson Fury wins again. But other than that, man, this topic is exhausting. I'm exhausted. I'd rather talk about Jojo Diaz. I'd rather talk about the undisputed fight we have coming up at 154 between Charlo and Castano. I'd rather talk about the positives in the sport, not the negatives, man. The business of the sport just brings me down. And if I continue to focus on that, my channel will disappear for years again. I told myself when I started this channel back up a couple months ago, full time, is dropping videos every day. If I'm going to do this consistently, dropping videos every day, I have to focus on the positives. I have to focus on what I'm in it for, and that's the fights. That's the fights. I'm in it for the fights, which is why I respected guys like the four gentlemen behind me, why I respected the guys like Arturo Gatti, Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya when he was fighting. I mean, you can say what you want about him, but the guy fought all of the top fighters in his divisions, respective divisions, when he was active. I respect the fighters who fight consistently and defend their titles. And that's just something, that's my one criticism of Fury, is he hasn't defended a title since he's been the champion. Not a single one. And that's frustrating. So that's where I'm at with it, man. I'm just exhausted with it. And if I focus on that, I'm going to disappear again. I'm going to disappear. You're not going to see me again for another 2-3 years before I get the bug again. And I don't want to do that. I got to focus on the positives. So as far as the positives, Jojo Diaz, fighter of the night last night and fighter of the week, beating Fortuna. Zurdo Ramirez, although boring throughout his career, I want to see him fight Bivol. See what he can do at the top of 175. Beating Sullivan Barrera doesn't really do it for me, but at least he did it in somewhat exciting fashion by body punch knockout. Estrada versus Tsunami. Estrada is the most skilled female fighter I've seen. Pound for pound, the best female fighter I've seen up to this point in my couple months of watching female boxing. So I don't have too much of an encyclopedia as far as female boxing. I'm not the one to go to, but getting into it, and Estrada is very, very skilled. And William Zepeda, you'll be hearing about that guy a lot on this channel, because I'm telling you, man, this guy is a rising star. He's a guy who's going to be fun to watch. And I'll be talking a lot about Tim Tszyu as well, by the way, because Tszyu impressed the hell out of me in his fight. I think that was Thursday morning. So shout out to him. And one last comment. Fury not a big puncher. Joshua can catch in Fury in any round. Yeah, possibly. But you don't have to be a big puncher to catch Joshua either, from what I've seen. So Fury has enough power to catch Joshua. And that's the aggravating thing about this, man, is we were that close to undisputed. We were that close to having the first undisputed heavyweight champion since 2001, I think it is, Lennox Lewis. So 20 years, maybe even a little over 20 years. We haven't had an undisputed heavyweight champion. We're that close. And they the politics of the sport. You can blame it on Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, whoever you want to blame it on. It didn't happen. And that's frustrating because we were that close. We were one fight away from having undisputed heavyweight champion. And that was the biggest fight that can be made in boxing. So I guess you can blame that a lot on Deontay Wilder, but I think there's enough blame to go around to a lot of guys in that sport. And it just doesn't seem like any of the guys besides Anthony Joshua wants to be undisputed heavyweight champion. From what I'm looking at, that's what I see. And it's frustrating because there's so many good fights to be made at the top of the heavyweight division if these guys would just get out of their own way. Frustrating. Do I think Loma is overrated? No. Well, it depends on how you're looking at it. If you're judging it off of Joe Tessitore, then yeah, nobody can possibly live up to Joe Tessitore's love of Lomachenko. Joe Tessitore acts like Lomachenko is a second coming, which nobody can live up to that. So I think that's what people get a lot of the overrated stuff from is ESPN's constant promotion and constant excuse making for Lomachenko when he lost the Teofimo fight. But as far as me, Lomachenko is still a top 10 pound for pound guy, still a top 10 pound for pound talent. And he's possibly on a revenge tour now. Took care of his last fight. And guess what? He wants a Teofimo rematch. And look, if this Kambosos fight doesn't come off, go straight to the rematch. Go straight to Teofimo versus Lomachenko rematch towards the end of the year. Get that fight done. And I give Lomachenko a good shot of winning that fight, man. I still think Lomachenko is capable of making those adjustments in order to possibly beat Teofimo. And I see that still. I give Teofimo the slight edge, maybe 55-45, maybe even 52-48. Because Lomachenko, he's still there, man. He's still there. So I don't think he's overrated. I think he's a great fighter. And he has the ability to come back from that loss. Look, a loss is a loss, man. He came back from the Salido loss early in his career, learned from it. And I think he's going to learn from this loss and come back from it as well. I'm just getting back into watching more fights. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people. A lot of people catch the bug again and come back. Watching Margarito Martin. That's right. 10 years ago, man, 15 years ago, it was fun. Those guys mixing it up. Guys, one of the fights I go back and watch often, you mentioned Margarito, is Paul Williams Margarito. That's a fun fight that happened over at the Home Depot Center in Carson, California. That was a fun fight. Paul Williams was one of my favorites back then when he was fighting at 147. He's another guy who nobody was giving him a fight at 147. He moved up to 160. He moved up 2 weight classes to get fights. He fought at 154. So he lost some of those fights, but he fought. He fought. So shout out to Paul Williams, man, one of my favorites. I don't know much about the new young, but you'll learn as you watch. It's the same thing I said about female boxing, man. It's a tough thing to get into late in the game, but I do. I've seen enough of these girls fight now to where I see skill there, and it's becoming entertaining to me. So even though late in the game, I'm still learning it. I'm looking forward to Usyk versus AJ. Yes. And Usyk, don't sleep on Usyk. He could possibly ruin AJ's plans of becoming undisputed. Usyk's tough, man. Usyk's tough. Too bad for Paul. That's one of my guys I'm not sure for Mayweather. That's right. Mayweather didn't want to fight Paul Williams. He didn't want to fight Paul Williams at welterweight. So that's good. I'm good, man. I'm going head out to the McGregor Poirier party. Shout out to Dustin Poirier. Hope he wins the fight tonight. But I'm out, man. God bless. Y'all sub to the channel if y'all aren't sub. Sub to all Hispanic Causing Panic channels out there. Show love and support out there. And God bless y'all, man. Have a good weekend. Peace.